So is Mauricio Pochettino under pressure, or is that far from the root of Chelsea's problems? Whether or not it might be what the owners think is the solution is a different question, which we can come to. But the root of Chelsea's problem seems to be player acquisition, no?
Well, the right player for a start, in respects of a striker, which is something that they obviously need. See, Jackson, he's trying. He's very young. He's very tough.
Nkunku obviously is
and
injured.
Nkunku, so somebody that you feel like now is under immense pressure once he comes in, to maybe hit the ground running. But again, we're looking at a Chelsea side with very good players. We don't really see the structure of what's going on, exactly how they're going to play. But again, I've watched games with Chelsea where if they take the chances what they've created, they probably start building confidence in a team that's quite young. They've got young players who are losing confidence with every loss. You know what I mean? The pressure was coming. You could feel it in the stadium. And, I don't think there's enough experienced players enough to calm it down so as they could get through these periods in games, score those goals and start to build momentum and confidence in games. And I think that's a massive worry for me. It's the young players and their emotional state in trying to, next week, OK, we'll do it next week. Or, we'll start doing it. It's got to start happening soon for Chelsea, especially with their fixtures.
Yeah, I have to agree with you a lot there. I think if I go back to when I was coming through and I was a young lad, even though it was on the back of some spankings from Arsenal,
yeah,
at least when I came on the pitch, I had mature, experienced players to kind of guide me through. Play with freedom, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. Whereas now the subs that are coming on, they're coming on for somebody else that's effectively in the same position as them. Or the subs that have been on the bench have never.
You look at those fixtures there, Mayowa, like Liverpool, West Ham, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth and Villa.
But that opening day draw against Liverpool, it looked as though there were sparks. It was going somewhere.
Signs of encouragement. I think ultimately, if you cast memories back to that first game, a lot of the conversation was, who are all of these players?
Yeah.
So everyone was like, who's this?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the issue where you're trying to mix and blend so many different profiles, so many young players at once. I think there's just so many things going on. It's hard to pinpoint one thing as well. I mean, right, you talk about the lack of goal scoring. For the whole of 2023, even when it was part of Chelsea, with the same thing, performing on XG but not scoring goals. It's a goal scoring business. If you're not scoring goals, you're not performing well. And it's been the same thing throughout the whole calendar year. Whether that's because they've not brought a striker in or they're not implementing the right things or the player's not good enough. We cannot score goals for the life of us. But at the moment now, Pochettino probably is feeling the pressure. You look at the games that Chelsea have coming up and it could get very, very, very spooky. Because as you said, loads of young players.
You look at those.
That's so tough.
I think you look at...
Well, you want a cushion from Fulham and Burnley, don't you, before you go into... Fulham have a decent record.
You wanted a cushion...
And that's a derby.
Yeah, but you wanted the cushion in the first 5 games. Statistically, you had the easiest run-in. You look at, what Ange managed to do at Spurs, implement something in the first 5 games.
Yeah.
We've done nothing, and now we have 2 more games to potentially try and do something before you go into a really, really tough run.
I think you look at those, obviously Brighton in the League Cup, but Fulham, which is a derby, like we say, and Burnley are 2 must-win games now. They have to win those games because what you're looking at after that is Arsenal, Brentford, Tottenham, City, Newcastle. You look at those games, the way Chelsea are playing at the moment, and you really would worry for them.
Do you think Poch actually knows how he wants to play? Because at times I've seen Chilwell playing as a winger. It doesn't seem to like him at left-back. He was playing Levi Colwill there at some point. So I'm kind of confused as to the way he actually wants Chelsea to play anyway. There's a few players that will always play that you see in the team. But I feel like if Sterling isn't playing well, there's no creativity in that team whatsoever. There's nobody that's going to get him behind or do a bit of trickery to create an opportunity.
Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of emphasis on him. And, you've seen him, and like you rightly say, Kels, he's doing well. He's doing OK. But in some of those moments, again, if he takes those chances, if they take the chances like I saw him create, I saw Chilwell have a great chance. I saw Jackson have a good chance at home. I think I can't underestimate how important it is when you score at home as a young player and then you start to get that good energy from the crowd rather than that energy of moaning and groaning when things don't go well. So then what happens is, Kels, you then start to play within yourself. You don't want to make mistakes. Then you're trying to be too precise with the finishes. And then all that just amounts to more time, taking more time. And the more time you take, the more the goalie's going to set himself. The defender gets time to come back and challenge you. And that, for me, is where you look at Chelsea and you think, something's going to have to give soon. They're going to need to do it. And I think it's those next 2 games. If they don't do it in those 2 games, then you probably do have to start worrying for Poch. I'm not sure if a new manager comes in and changes it straight away, but like you rightly mentioned there, but Ange, we've seen in 5-6 games a style of play, what Tottenham's playing, what everyone understands and we can all see. And we're looking at Chelsea and we still don't even know who their best 11 will be.
It's like a chef opening the fridge, and it might be amazing parmesan, but if it's in there with like delicious chocolate, you're not going to make anything that anybody wants to eat, are you? And it might all be incredible, but it's not going to come together in a good way.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's bizarre. I think a lot of people look at Chelsea historically and say that there's always been a bounce back. But I think you have to look at Chelsea as a new team now. That bounce back is not going to come. Like, you look at all of the players, we spent over £1 billion. And you look at that team and be like, where's the money been spent? It's almost like, supermarket rush. You just grab everything and you come back. It's like, what do you have to show for what you spent? Don't know. So ultimately, there are issues there. It takes time to blend any team, talk to a team of young players. And as you both know, when you're a young player, you're going to have peaks and troughs in performance. But you need game time on the pitch to actually improve.
Yeah.
You can't guarantee all of these young players development time to improve, especially when you're under a lot of pressure with those fixtures coming. And that's where it gets tricky. Some of the more experienced players have to step up. But really and truly, you probably only have Thiago Silva, I say Disasi because he's a French international, Sterling.
Yeah.
You look at the team on the weekend, the person with experience was probably Conor Gallagher saying that at West Brom I went for a tough time, let's bring it all together. And that's not what you need at that level for that club.
They've got Enzo, haven't they? And they've got a World Cup winner in there. But
he's played
a junior
and a half
of
professional football before a massive move. Season 2 seasons, Caicedo, similar. It's very difficult.
Another one of the worries is probably going to be if this run continues like it does where, they're losing home games and, they're drawing games away from home in teams that they should be beating. You just feel that for me, that when you look at, like I say, a young team that are continually losing and you can't get out of the
rock.
Yeah, and then you're on these long contracts, then what happens is that your confidence is going, you're not playing, and you're sitting around. It doesn't seem like the atmosphere, that the environment is going to be one of, come on, you've got to keep going, because then they're thinking, well, I'm here for 8 years, it's not going well. We'll see what happens if this manager goes. It doesn't seem to breed the kind of mentality what makes you want to push to do well.
Yeah.
Gives you a kind of like, okay, well, I'll just sit back.
The other thing with
really
the long contracts, as I understand it, is Chelsea do need to qualify for Europe in order to be able to kind of make their finances work in terms of FFP. Or it's certainly it's of primary importance to try and make that happen, because that's something that's going to potentially help them towards the future seasons with all the amortisation of player fees and the we can all Google. But look, there's an issue with Chelsea, and it doesn't feel like anything that's going to resolve itself anytime soon. And of course, they've got 12 players out injured, and that's just making things even more difficult. If you're looking at the first choice 11 and thinking there's some unknowns in there, when you're down to the second choice, it's starting to look a little bit kind of make do and mend. On the other hand, you've got Manchester City with a perfect start to the season. They are absolutely cruising. Look, we should really put this in context of who they've played. I mean, they had the game against Newcastle, in which Newcastle didn't play particularly well, and so that was kind of and Man City got the 1-0 win. They played West Ham, who they beat comfortably, but they were a goal down in that one. But other than that, it's been opposition that you would expect Manchester City to win. The big game's going to come up in a couple of weeks' time when they play Arsenal, and then we'll get a real sense of where everything might end up this season. But is everything that you've seen from Manchester City suggested that they are just, on rollers to the end of the season?
I look at it, if you go off the last few seasons, no matter who they came up with, whether they're a bottom of the table, middle of the table, City always struggled, started off very slowly. And for whatever reason this year, the teams that they may have dropped points from in the past year, they're winning them. I wouldn't say they necessarily played at their peak powers when they've won all these games, but they did what it took to win those games. I think their best performance so far this season, I would say, was the first half against Nottingham Forest, where they dictated. But then I could also say that Forest were that scared of them that they kind of let them do what they wanted. But the way they're playing is fantastic. I don't think Haaland's where he wants to be in himself yet, as in front of goals. He's got 8 goals and people are saying he should have more. And I'm one of those people, but that's the standards I think he
his
set for
finishing
himself.
hasn't been as clinical as it was. I know it sounds ridiculous, but as always with Manchester City and with Manchester City players, we're talking about them almost with like unique metrics. It's kind of, we're judging them by a different standard from everyone else.
So when they was on pre-season, they couldn't do too much because of the humidity and heat. So training was like really, really tailored to the point where me and Jolien were thinking, hold on a minute, if we had pre-season like this, we might have lasted until we was 38.
Was it really good?
No, it was really tailored to the weather. They played games and they were ready for the games. And it seems like they got fitter and fitter as this season's gone on. And I think right now, but when you lose Kevin De Bruyne, then on one hand you're thinking, what are we going to do now? Just chuck in Alvarez. It's okay. Do you know what I mean? You little and large combination.
Yeah, but again, with City, one thing that they will do is that with their big chances, they take them. Yeah. That is the difference.
But then you say that, Dad, against West Ham, before that goal, they had nearly 17 chances before they scored.
Yeah, but they continue making more.
But yeah, that's the thing.
The positive.
They'll continue making more, but then with the big ones, they'll take them because they'll take them, and that's the difference with them. You look at them and they do feel at the moment unbeatable.
Scary though, because
they do.
Feel like they're at full pelt.
Nowhere near.
Like
but they haven't had to be, and that's what City are brilliant at, is not ever reaching full potential unless they need to. They reserve something, don't they?
They build in. Well, what we saw, this part of the season, which you see with all the top teams, they're just making sure that the games are won. Because then, like we saw towards the end of last season, when they needed to kick into that gear where everyone's saying, "Oh, we'll see what happens when they just continue to win the games." They're building to the place where they know, right, this is where we switch on now. We win these games, with not so much petrol in the tank, but then we get the petrol filled up and then we go and finish it all off. That's what they do.
It's scary. You look at it. One of the best defenders in the league, John Stones, not there. One of the best players in the league, KDB, not there.
Not there, yeah.
Nunes comes in, looks like he's been there for years.
Doku
comes in, looks like he's been there for years. Specifically when a lot of the talk has always been like City players need a year of downloading data. They've just gone in and been
unbelievable.
100% downloaded.
Like he's changed. Has he changed something? Because you look at Doku, he's just plug and play. The both of them.
I don't know. I think Doku's got that old school style winger feeling about him. I think when the ball gets to him, he already knows he wants to take him on.
Yeah, but the ball gets there quicker.
Yeah,
because with Jack, when we see Jack in the same situation when Jack first got there, by the time the ball got to Jack, there was 2 players in front. It seems like by the time the ball's getting to Doku, he's got 1 player to run at, and even if he's got 2, he's so quick and able to get it done in a short space that he's breaking lines, he's progressing through teams and creating.
So you see what City changed. So against West Ham, they were getting the ball to him early. He was squaring up Soufal, and he was doing him. This time, what they did against Forest obviously watched that game and said, right, we're going to stop him. They got the ball to him. As soon as the ball came out, if you see Kyle Walker literally played as a winger that whole game. And Tavares didn't know what to do. He didn't know whether to go with Phil Foden or not. And then they just switched it out quickly. So to have him as an asset, because he will go both ways.
He'll take up players.
He will go both ways. Yeah, he'll draw players in and won't go across too much with it. If he goes inside, you'll see him lay it off as quick as possible. He won't keep running with the ball.
It's the beauty of it, though, that they all understand football to such a level that you can optimise that performance and you could put different players in and still expect the same level of performance, which I feel like a lot of other teams probably don't have. You change key personnel and you have to adapt how you're playing. City are just constantly going to do this, constantly. And you saw how Forest performed. They didn't know what to do. It was like, we know it's coming, we don't know when, let's just try, and then the onslaught just started.
Do you not think Cooper kind of little shot himself in the foot a little bit? I think Forest, you see them play, everything's about counter-attack. City, we're vulnerable every now and again at counter-attack, but then you leave Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi on the bench. And basically you're starving Iwoni on his own.
Those are the kind of decisions where you think to yourself, my season's not going to be defined by beating City. I want to put them 2 players in, Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi, and let them have a go. and see how it goes. They lost the game anyway. They might as well let them have a go. How can you not do that?
Lost the game and then City down to 10 men, which means that Rodri will be suspended for the game against Arsenal. Just trying to eject an element of jeopardy into the whole procedure.